So I recently applied for the OCI card or the Overseas Citizen of India card for my minor son who was born in Canada. I did the application from Toronto, and the whole process from submitting the application to BLS to receiving the card in the mail took about 40 days. So in this video, we'll talk about where to apply, the main application form overview, documents required to be uploaded online and how to prepare those documents for upload, then documents required to be submitted physically at BLS, details about signatures, thumbprints and photos, paying the right amount of fees, submitting the application at BLS, and finally my experience at BLS and what you can expect from your own timeline. So broadly speaking, there are two steps in the OCI application for a minor born in Canada. Step 1 is the online registration, where you fill out an online application form and upload the supporting documents. This gets you in the system and you get an application or reference number. And step 2 is where you gather all your supporting documents and physically submit the application at a BLS center near you for your jurisdiction in Canada. We'll take a look at both in this video. So you'll start here. This is the BLS website. I'll link it below. This is where you're going to apply. So BLS is the visa application center in Canada that works with the Indian High Commission or the Consulate General of India. So here, based on where you live in Canada, you select the right jurisdiction and that's where you apply. So there are 3 jurisdictions here to select, and I live in Ontario, and as you can see, Ontario is listed in both these jurisdictions. So which one do I select? So if you live in Ontario and your postal code of your residence in Canada in Ontario starts with K, then you select the Ottawa jurisdiction. For all other postal codes in Ontario, you select the Toronto jurisdiction. For example, my postal code starts with M, I live in Ontario, and that's why I will select the Toronto jurisdiction. And obviously, if you live in British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, you select the Vancouver jurisdiction. So then you click proceed and here's the Toronto jurisdiction webpage. Then you click on this OCI tab and you'll get 3 tabs here. So this OCI information is basically benefits of the OCI. You can read all about this at your convenience. You probably already know about those. But for the application instructions and details, you click on this middle tab, the OCI tab. Then under who can apply, all these categories of people can apply. So to be eligible, one of these situations has to apply to your minor child. For example, the case we are discussing in this video is the OCI application for a minor whose parents are still Indian citizens. So this category number 6, who is a minor child and whose both parents are citizens of India, or one of the parents is a citizen of India, applies to my wife and I. Now, even if one parent is an Indian citizen and other parent is a Canadian citizen, their minor child is still eligible according to this category. Even if both parents are Canadian citizens but the grandparents are Indian citizens, that child is still eligible. Then the next tab is the application fees. So here are all the instructions. We'll come back to this when we talk about payment. Then next is the document requirements. So if I click on the checklist under Toronto jurisdiction, this is where you get the list of all documents that you are required to submit. And this checklist is pretty much the same for all other jurisdictions, with maybe some minor differences that are specific to your jurisdiction. So whether it's Toronto, Vancouver or Ottawa, you should always follow the specific checklist of your jurisdiction. For the purpose of this video, we'll only cover the Toronto jurisdiction, but that should give you a pretty good idea about the other jurisdictions as well, because it's mostly the same. So we'll come back to this checklist when we talk about step 2, which is the physical submission at BLS. But first, let's talk about step 1, which is the online application submission. So you can find the link for the online application under online application form section. You click on this link, it will take you to the ociservices.gov website. So you click on proceed, then check the box below and click accept. Enter the CAPTCHA exactly as shown. This is case sensitive. Then click on fill new application. Now remember, my son is the one who's applying for OCI. He's the main applicant. I am simply filling out this application on his behalf because he's a minor. So let's start filling this out. Place of submission is Canada because the application will be submitted in Canada. We are talking about minor born in Canada. Then mission is the jurisdiction we selected in the beginning based on the location. So for us, it was Toronto. Then last name, first name of the child, exactly as it's shown on his Canadian passport. Then have you ever changed name? So no for my son. Then sex, date of birth, country of birth, place of birth, current nationality, all pretty straightforward. Then national identification number. So I simply wrote NA and I had no issues. But if you want, you can put the SIN number or the passport number. That's fine. It's not really going to make a big deal. Now for visible mark, if there is a significant identification mark on your child's body, then you describe it here. But if the child doesn't have any significant marks, then you can write no visible marks and you should be fine. Then next up is applicant's passport details. So this is also pretty straightforward. Grab your child's Canadian passport, put all that information here. For previous passport number, this is more to do with Indian nationals who may become naturalized citizens to put down their old Indian passport numbers here. But I just left it blank since the field does not have any asterisk. This is not a mandatory field. The next up is applicant's family details, meaning my son's parents' information here. So under father's name, obviously my name as per my current passport. Nationality is Indian. Profession, I selected private service, private sector, and I similarly populated details for my son's mother, which is my wife. Then relation with root Indian. So this means they're asking how the Indian origin of the applicant, the minor child in this case, is established. For example, my son is a Canadian passport holder, and both his parents, me and my wife, are still Indian nationals. We still hold our Indian passports. So my son's Indian origin can be established through either of his parents, either me, his father, or his mother. So I could select father or mother here. I went with father. Now let's say my wife and I are both Canadian citizens, but my parents are still both Indian nationals, meaning my son's grandparents are still Indian nationals. So in that case, my son's Indian origin can be established through his grandparents, either one of the grandparents. And similar logic can be applied with great grandparents as well. Or if one parent is a Canadian citizen and the other parent is Indian citizen, then the Indian origin can be established through the Indian citizen parent. Now quickly, if you scroll up here, you'll notice a temporary application ID has been assigned to this application. So make sure you copy and save this somewhere, because let's say you get logged out or timed out of your application portal. Then to get back, you simply go to this website, proceed, accept, enter the CAPTCHA, and then you click on complete partially filled application. You paste the temporary ID that you just copied and you'll be brought back to the work where you stopped. The next step is applicant's address details. So this means the present address of the applicant, meaning where is the applicant currently residing in Canada. So my son, the applicant in this case, was residing with me and my wife in Canada. So that's why I put down my Canadian residential address here. So the address that you list here must match the address that is on your supporting documents, such as your driver's license or utility bills, which you will submit to BLS at the time of application submission. And now you just do a thorough review, make sure all the information is accurate, and then you click submit. Once you do, you'll get this file reference number that starts with CAN. So this is your application number. Save this somewhere also. You'll be using this a lot later. Alright, next you need to upload the photo and the signature. So before you upload, you must first get the photo and the signature of your child. So for the applicant's photo instructions, you click on this view photo specifications link and you'll get the instructions. Go through them slowly. Also take a look at some sample photos for minors to be sure what works and what doesn't. The photo basically has to be a 2" by 2" square aspect ratio, height equal to width, colored and against a white background. So now the best way to get the photo taken is to take your child to your nearest digital photography studio or passport photo center, whatever works for you, and show them the instructions and they'll know what to do. Just make sure to call ahead and confirm whether your photo studio works with newborns or babies, because some centers might not. Now when you're getting the photo taken at the studio, make sure to also ask them to email you a digital version or a soft copy of the photo. Now some studios might not prepare a soft copy for you. That's totally fine. That's what we are going to take a look at, on how to prepare the digital version from the hard copy yourself at home. So I got the hard copy from the studio. Then to convert it into a digital version, what I did was at home, I placed the hard copy on a smooth plain surface and then just snapped a picture of that using my phone like this. Then I imported it to my computer and that's how I got the digital version. Obviously, this will need a lot of fixing. We'll get to that in a second, but let's first talk about getting the thumb impression. So you will need to get a thumb impression for your baby, left thumb impression for boys and right thumb impression for girls. So now the photo studio that we went to get the picture taken, they also did the thumb impression for my child. They were very educated on the OCI process, so we didn't really have to explain anything specifically to them. So basically they took 2 thumbprints of my son in the studio on 2 separate pieces of white paper. And then they gave me these rectangular cutouts of those. These are not copies of each other. We just asked them to take 2 separate ones in case it didn't capture the first time, the other might be better. Only one is needed, but just in case one gets damaged or smudged, it's better to get 2. So ask your photo studio and see if they can do this for you. If they can't, then it's not a problem. You can also do this yourself at home. Just go to Amazon and find yourself a fingerprint ink pad. Black or blue ink is preferable, and order yourself one. Once it's delivered, you can get the thumb impression of your child that way on a piece of plain white paper. So again, just like the photo, the thumb impression will also have 2 uses. Number 1, you upload the digital version of the thumb impression in the online portal. And number 2, you submit the physical hard copy of the thumb impression to BLS on the day of your appointment. So now that you have the photo and the thumb impression, coming back to this page, this is where you are required to upload the image of your child and the image of their signature. Both images have to be JPEG or JPG format, not more than 500 kilobytes in size. For the photo, the aspect ratio has to be a 1:1, meaning a square aspect ratio, height equal to width. And for the signature image, the aspect ratio has to be a 1:3, which is a rectangular aspect ratio. The portal is very strict about these requirements. So you click on yes, ready with the image, and you'll get to the image upload page. Here on the left, you will upload the minor's photo, and on the right, their signature image. So now when trying to upload images on this portal, people have a hard time getting these images in the right size, format and dimensions so that the portal can accept those images. Whether you're working on a Mac, Apple device or a Windows PC, these problems could happen to either one of you. So, in order to understand this better, let's take two examples. I'll show you how to prepare the child's photo image on a Mac or Apple device, and then for the signature image, we'll work on a Windows PC. So whatever operating system you're using, after watching this, you'll be able to prepare your child's photo image as well as their thumb impression image in either operating system, whether it's a Mac or a Windows. So here's the image of my son that I took from my phone, and then I imported it to my MacBook. So what I'll do is right click this photo and open it with preview. It's a photo viewing tool. Every Mac comes with it, so you won't have to install it. It should be there in your Apple device. Then to view details of the photo, I'll click on this inspector or I button up top. And as you can see, the format is HEIF, which is a high efficiency image. It's not JPEG. The size is 4.6 megabytes, so much larger than 500 kilobytes. Obviously, there's a lot of background and the dimensions are not right. Height is not equal to width. So this is not 1:1. Remember, we need square aspect ratio. Height should be equal to width. So this image is obviously not ready to be uploaded. If you try uploading, it will fail. So let's fix this. So first step, with the image open in preview, you select this markup tool up top on the right, and it will open the image editor. And now you can do some editing on this image. So here up top, I'll select this selection tool and make sure I'm selecting the rectangular selection. Then I'll start clicking and dragging from the corner to make the selection of the image area. That way I'm eliminating the background. Now notice as I'm clicking and dragging, it also shows me in real time the changing dimensions. So remember, we need 1:1, meaning square. Height is equal to width, meaning we need both these dimensions equal to each other. So I'll keep dragging the edges in various directions to adjust the height and width so that the height gets equal to the width. After a bit of tampering, now I got it to a stable 1327 times 1327. Height is equal to width. So 1:1 criteria is met. And you don't have to choose this specific dimensions. It just has to be height equal to width. So now I'll move the selection around a bit to center its position. And once I'm happy with this image, I'll click this crop button on the upper right corner of preview. This will crop the image. So now if you click on this inspector button again, image is a proper square. So then what I do is keep this image open and select it. Then I hit file and then export. Here from the drop down, I'll select JPEG, and here I can use the slider to adjust the size. Sliding to the right increases the size and quality, and sliding to the left reduces the size and quality. So remember, we need it to be less than or equal to 500 kilobytes. So I'll slide it to the right just to keep it under 500 kilobytes. Don't slide it too far to the left, otherwise you'll lose clarity. So 443 kilobytes is a sweet spot for me. Your number obviously could be different. So I'll hit save here. And now our image is ready. It meets all the criteria, so it's good for upload. So then I come back to the OCI application. Under image upload section, I click on choose file and simply upload the image here. If the photo meets the instructions, you'll get a prompt in green like this. So this means that the portal has accepted the photo. So I showed you the photo image preparation on Mac. So now I'll show you the thumbprint image preparation on Windows. So as you can see, the instructions on the screen has to be a JPEG, maximum size 500 kilobytes, and maximum allowed aspect ratio is 1500 times 500. So 1500 is width and 500 is height. This is a rectangular aspect ratio or 1:3 aspect ratio. So we have to make sure that the thumbprint image that we take meets these dimensions and does not exceed the maximum allowed aspect ratio of 1500 times 500. So just like the photo, to get the digital image of the thumb impression, what I did was to place the thumb impression paper on a smooth dark surface. Once I felt it was good enough, I just snapped a close-up picture using my phone. So this is the imported image on my Windows PC. Right away, we'll notice that the format is not JPEG and the size is 4.3 megabytes. So we need to fix this. So I'll right click and now I'll open this image in Paint. You can also do this in the Photos app, but I prefer Paint. So as you can see here, a lot of background. The aspect ratio is also wrong. It's over the allowed maximum of 1500 times 500. So we need to fix a lot in this image to get it ready for upload. So first step, I'll select this selection tool up top Then just like we did on Mac, I'll click and start dragging to make a selection on the image area. Notice as I'm making the selection, it tells me the dimensions in real time. So I'll keep dragging and adjusting the selection until I am within the right dimensions. So I think the 1497 times 497 is just under 1500 times 500. So this should work. So I'll stop here. Then up top, I'll click this crop button just like on Mac Preview to confirm the selection. And there is the new image. So I'll hit File here, Save As, and select JPEG as format and hit Save. As soon as I do that, notice that the size has already reduced to 125 kilobytes. So we have a JPEG image which is less than 500 kilobytes with the right dimensions. So this image is good and ready for upload. Again, if you're using a Mac, you can do the same steps in Preview just like I showed you for the image preparation for the child that we talked about. Use the same steps to prepare the thumb impression image as well. And again, don't worry about the quality of this fingerprint image because the priority is to get this uploaded to the portal. The priority is dimensions. You are going to be submitting the physical hard copy of the thumbprint to BLS anyway. That will take care of the clarity and all the biometric stuff. So now I've successfully uploaded both images. The portal has accepted those and this is the result. The applicant photo is at the top with the signature below. This is how these images will appear on your application form that you'll download. That's why the aspect ratios are very important. So I'll click on Uploaded Successfully and I'll get to this page, OCI Registration Confirmation. It's going to display a generic list of documents required. For now, you can just click Proceed to Part B. Now some basic declaration questions. So first up, have you or any member of your family applied for Overseas Citizen of India registration earlier? If yes, give details. So none of my son's family have applied for OCI yet. I have not and my wife has not. So no for us. But if you have, simply select yes and provide details here. Then have you surrendered or got your previous OCI card cancelled? Again, no for my son. First ever OCI application for him. Dual nationality, so this was also no for us. And then all of these are going to be no for a minor's OCI application. Then present nationality details, so Canadian will be pre-selected and acquisition method was by birth. He was born here, that's how he became a Canadian citizen. If your child was born outside of Canada but has claim to Canadian citizenship through inheritance, then you will select through descent. Then under previous nationality, so again does not apply to my son, no previous nationality, so simply leave this. Then do you have relatives staying in India? So this was yes because my son does have relatives staying in India. This is where I mentioned names and addresses of both my parents, who are my son's grandparents, and their age here. Then criminal processing, so this is no, and that completes part B of the application form. You'll get a prompt like this, registration has been completed. This is your application number, save it somewhere. And now let's talk about uploading supporting documents. So you'll get to this page, then under this drop down, you'll have a list of documents show up for upload. So from this drop down, you only need to upload the documents that apply to your case. For this scenario, we are looking at OCI application for minor born in Canada. So the documents required for this specific case are all mentioned in this document checklist that we looked at earlier. So in this checklist, there's a generic list under type A, and then there is a specific list under type C, which is OCI for minor born in Canada. So take a look at these documents here from the drop down list and then cross check and verify them if they're also mentioned here in this big checklist. For this scenario, OCI for minor born in Canada, then you will upload them here. Again, we'll go through this checklist in detail when we talk about part 2, which is physical submission to BLS. But for now, to save time, I'm just going to tell you the documents required to be uploaded online for an OCI application for a minor born in Canada. But you have this checklist, so don't take my word for it. Always cross-reference and verify. So let's begin uploading. First up is current passport. So yes, this is required. It's in the checklist. So you need to upload the photo page of your minor's Canadian passport here. So click on upload and keep these instructions in mind. Maximum size is 1000 kilobytes and it has to be a PDF document. So very easy to get PDFs from your documents. You can either use a commercial grade scanner to scan your documents into a PDF, or the best option, you can actually use your phone to scan your documents into a PDF using your Files app if you're using an iPhone. I'm sure there is a similar app on Android as well. Now, if your PDF scans are larger than 1000 kilobytes, you will need to reduce their size so that you can upload successfully here. Also very easy to do. Simply Google compressed PDF and you'll get a bunch of instructional tutorials on how to reduce the PDF size or how to combine multiple PDFs into one for both Windows and Mac users. You can either do this on your local device or you can even use these third-party compression tools to do it. Whatever way you're comfortable with. We are not going to spend more time discussing PDF compression, but I'll leave these links down below in the description so you can check them out. Then next up on the list, employment or work letter. So this is not applicable for minors OCI application, skip this. Then next up is the Indian origin proof. So yes, this is required. We talked about this when filling the form. So from this drop down, whatever document applies to you to prove Indian origin of your child, you upload that. My wife and I are still Indian nationals. We still hold our Indian passports. So my son's Indian origin can be established through his parents. So that's why I selected this option, current Indian passport of parents. Same logic if the Indian origin is established through grandparents. So then what I did was to scan the first and last page of my passport and my wife's passport. So 4 pages in total, scanned into a single PDF document and upload it here. Now, if you, the parents, have become Canadian citizens through the process of naturalization, but you have not received your OCI cards yet, then you can select this option, previous Indian passports, and you just upload the pages of your cancelled passports. If both parents have OCI cards, then select that option and upload a scan of both OCI cards. That also helps establish Indian origin. Now, this Indian visa, it's basically if your minor has a visa for India. For example, if your minor has a temporary tourist visa for India, also known as an e-visa, then you can simply upload a copy of that ETA here. The next step is the marriage certificate. So as you can see in this checklist, under type C, OCI for minor, registered marriage certificate of parents is required. So what I did was to upload the scan of my original registered marriage certificate issued from the local municipality in India here. Next up is the relationship certificate. So yes, this is required. So you need to upload the long form birth certificate of your child issued by whatever province they were born in Canada. Long form meaning parents' names and places of birth also listed. That's a long form birth certificate. For example, this is the standard Ontario long form birth certificate of my son with parents' names and places of birth also listed. I uploaded this and I had no issues. Now, an important note, because we are on the topic of birth certificates, there is some confusion about what kind of birth certificate needs to be uploaded here. So there are 2 kinds of birth certificates. One is the standard long form birth certificate with parents' details, and the other one is the certified copy, also known as the statement of live birth. This is much more detailed but serves the similar purpose as a birth certificate. So now the confusion is which birth certificate to upload, because these are both official birth certificates. So like I said, I just uploaded my son's standard long form Ontario birth certificate. I had no issues. But to be extra cautious and super safe, I would recommend you should also upload the statement of live birth here. Technically, they should accept your standard long form birth certificate of your child that was issued by the province in Canada. But again, this is BLS. Things may get confusing and the instructions are not completely clear. Some websites talk about statement of live birth, some specifically talk about standard birth certificates. So save yourself that confusion. Just combine your child's standard long form birth certificate with the statement of live birth and upload as a single PDF here. So what I'm suggesting here is when you apply for your child's birth certificate, don't just apply for the standard long form birth certificate with parents' details. Also apply for the statement of live birth. If you want to learn how to do that all in one single application, here's a video where I've shared that in detail. It's also linked below. Now, this joint declaration of subsisting of marriage, PIO card, spouse OCI card, spouse passport, they don't really apply for a minor's OCI application, so you can skip these categories. And those are all the documents that you need to upload for your OCI minor application. Now, one quick note about these documents. For online upload, you don't need to attest the scans of these documents by signing and dating them and then scanning them. You only need to attest the documents that you will physically submit to BLS. But for online uploads, no attestation needed. Just scan as is and upload. So now you click on Final Submit and your online application will get transmitted. Then you will click on this Generate Registration Form and the form will get downloaded to your local device. Then you can exit out the application. Okay, so here's the online application form that you just downloaded from the OCI portal. Take a printout of this. You'll need to submit it physically to BLS. So here's obviously the photo of the child, their thumbprint, and all the details that you must have already verified. Then on the side here is your application or reference number starting with CAN. So save this, it will come in handy later. So then if you scroll down on page 3, you'll have a declaration section, and there are 2 sections for signature. And this is where there's a lot of confusion about where the parent should sign and where to put the minor's thumbprint. So point 1 to 4 are completely for the applicant, who's the minor child in this case. Nothing to do with the parents here from 1 to 4. So in point 1, under name of the applicant, you put down your child's name, the minor who's applying for OCI, in block capital letters. Use a black or blue ink. Then put the current date and place where you're living. I put Toronto. Then under signature of the applicant, this is the signature of the OCI applicant, your minor child in this case. So this is where you stick the thumbprint of your child. So what I did was to just stick the thumbprint of my child that I got from the studio. Basically, I glued it here under the signature section in the application form. Okay, now this section that says application for minor child is meant for the parent of the child, the parent who's applying on behalf of the minor child. So says here, I'm a parent of, again, child's name here, then date, place, and here where it says signature of the applicant, this is not for the child. You've already put the child's thumbprint above, so their signature is done. This is for both parents to sign. I know this is confusing, they should have clarified it here, but I confirmed this with the BLS staff. This is for parents. So my wife and I both hand signed this section, and I also put our names in capital letters underneath our signatures. Make sure both parents sign this form. BLS is very strict about this requirement. Now let's talk about part 2, the physical submission to BLS. So what you'll do is collect the documents from this checklist that apply to your case, print them out, and then submit them to your nearest BLS center. So as you glance through this document, you'll notice this checklist is divided into several sections. So there are different categories with a list of generic documents for each. And then if you scroll down, there are information booklets with details about each of those categories. So let's start from the beginning. Scrolling back up, this is type A, application for a fresh OCI. Doesn't specifically talk about minor or adult, it's just a generic list applicable for all. So for the case that we are discussing, minor born in Canada, some of these will apply. But for additional documents specific to this case, you have to scroll down under type C1 for minor born in Canada. And then for details on these additional documents, you go further down under the information booklet, type C, OCI for minor born in Canada. So that's how you'll navigate through this checklist for this scenario. And as you are going through the list, for all documents that apply to your case, you just put a check mark here under verified by applicant. First up is type A, the checklist itself. So check mark here because you will be submitting this checklist. Then next is the online application form. We already looked at it. You'll print this form out and you'll submit it to BLS. So check here. Then item C, D, E don't apply to minor born in Canada. So no need to check anything here. Then F, Canadian passport. This is required. So check here. Basically, you'll need to take the original as well as the copy of your child's Canadian passport to BLS. So you take the original as is, but for the copy of the minor's Canadian passport, both parents should attest it. Just write a line at the bottom that this is a true copy of the original, and then both parents sign it and date it. You can just do this by hand. And in case you're wondering, BLS is not going to keep your child's original passport. They will return it right away after they review your application. The next up is G, registered marriage certificate. So this does not apply as it's a minor. Nothing to be done here. Don't get confused. This is about the applicant's marriage certificate, not the marriage certificate of the applicant's parents. We are getting to the parents' marriage certificate in a second, but this is not it. So leave this. Then H is spouse passport. So the applicant is a minor, so does not have a spouse. So either leave blank or write not applicable. Then I, professional details. So this also does not apply for a minor. Then J is proof of address. So yes, this is required. So if you scroll down on this form under type A, under proof of address, it says here for OCI application of minor children, proof of address of both the parents has to be submitted. And for the proof of address, they accept any of these documents. I just took both of our original Canadian driving licenses that had the same residential address on it, and it was fine. They usually don't accept bank statements as proof of address. It will have to be some sort of a government ID with the current Canada address. And that address should match the address that you have mentioned in your application. Now, normally the staff at BLS will accept the attested copies of the proof of address as well. But to be safe, take originals also with you just in case. Which reminds me, any document that you are taking a copy of should be self-attested. Meaning you write this line in the copy of that document, this is a true copy of the original, and that person should sign and date it. If the document is common to both parents, then both parents should sign and date it. The next up is fees. So obviously you'll be paying the fees, so just check this box. Now for details of the fee structure, you scroll down under type A, information booklet. Here is the fee breakdown. This is for the in-person submission, which most people will choose. So let's discuss that first. So for an in-person submission, you'll need to pay 376 Canadian in the form of a demand draft made payable to the consulate of your jurisdiction. So let's say your jurisdiction is Toronto. So you'll need to go to your bank and then ask them for a demand draft of 376 Canadian dollars payable to the Consulate General of India, Toronto. No other demand drafts are required for in-person submission. Now, if you're posting the application by mail, which I would not recommend, but if you are doing it, then you'll need this 376 Canadian demand draft made payable to the Consulate General of India for your jurisdiction. In addition, you will also need the 1.7 Canadian demand draft for BLS. Further instructions are posted here, so look under Postal Applications heading for details if you are going with this route. The next step is photograph. So yes, required. It's the same photo that you uploaded to the online OCI application. You just take a hard copy of that to the BLS center. You don't have to attest the photo. Don't write anything on the back of the photo. Just take it as is. The BLS staff would stick that photo on the application form. Alright, so now we're done with the generic list. Now scrolling down to the specific list for OCI application for minor born in Canada, type C1. So first up is birth certificate. So yes, it is required. So basically take the original birth certificate of your child issued by your province in Canada, the long form birth certificate with parents' details. Additionally, also take the statement of live birth just to be safe. The next up is NOC signed by both parents. So yes, this is also required. So to find the NOC, you scroll down on the checklist till you get to type C information booklet. So you'll see right away section O NOC. So simply click this link and you'll get the form. It's a pretty straightforward form. So you print it out and fill it with capital block letters. Black or blue ink is preferable. So name of the parents here, name of the child, the applicant here, then father's and mother's phone number and email addresses, and then both parents of the child must sign here and then paste their photos. So for photos of parents for this form, there is no specific format mentioned. So I just pasted the standard colored passport photos of ourselves that we had, and we had no issues. Then copies of parents' passports. So yes, this is also required. If you scroll down to the information booklet for details under type C, under section P, passports of parents, it says here, if parents are Canadian nationals, then current Canadian passport copy of parents is required, along with the old Indian passport copies of parents, grandparents, depending on the OCI eligibility criteria for your minor that you're using. And if the parents of the minor are still Indian nationals, then their Indian passport copies are required, along with the proof of status of parents in Canada. So this was the case for me and my wife. We are both permanent residents in Canada. So I had to take both our passport copies. We both self-attested our copies. Additionally, I also took our original PR cards as proof of status to the BLS center. I also took the original COPRs, which are the landing papers, just to be safe, because again, having talked to a few people, sometimes the BLS staff can be really picky about PR cards versus the COPR. So it's safe to take both. So parents, if you're still Indian nationals, you must take your original status in Canada documents, whatever status you are in. The next up is the registered marriage certificate. So now this marriage certificate is for the parents of the minor, not the applicant. So I just took a copy of my marriage certificate and my wife and I both attested it by signing and putting the date. Alright, almost done with the supporting documents. Just a few more details in this checklist. So scroll down and under details to be filled by the applicant, this is where you put down the child's name, file number, which is the number that starts with CAN, the center where you will be submitting the documents. So just list the address of that center here, then current date, and then here under the signature of the applicant, again, not for minor, it's for you, the parent who is submitting the application on behalf of the minor. So I signed it, next to it my wife also signed it, we also put down our names in capital letters and then we dated it. This step is important, both parents should sign and date this checklist. Then this right side is only required if you're mailing in the application by post, otherwise leave it blank. And that is the checklist with all the documents. Now for submission of the application, you have two options. You can either mail in your application by post, or you can physically submit the application at a BLS center by walk-in or by making an appointment. So in my opinion, the in-person submission is much better because you will be required to submit originals of certain documents such as the child's Canadian passport or their birth certificate. So for an in-person submission, you'll just have to show them the originals, they will review and return it right back. So you are not really devoid of the original documents. So it reduces the risk of not having originals with you for a long period of time. Whereas if you mail in the application with the originals, there's always a risk of the documents getting lost. Also, let's say you mail in the packet and your application has a minor issue, BLS would just return it right away. So you won't get any chance to fix a minor issue which you may have gotten if you were present at the BLS center. So all in all, in-person submission is much more advantageous. So now for the in-person submission, you have two options. You can either walk into your nearest BLS center, or you can make an appointment. I would recommend make an appointment, otherwise you may be greeted with very long lines, and sometimes people spend hours at a BLS center. So to make an appointment, you head on over to this page, select your jurisdiction, you'll be given this prompt for appointment. So click on this link, select the center from drop down. I'll select Toronto, then service type is OCI, and then available dates will be shown in green. So then select your preferred time slot, then applicant name, so the name of the child here, their Canadian passport number, your email where you'll receive the confirmation, and then hit submit. Then you'll get this confirmation of appointment page. They may email it to you, but sometimes that email goes to spam or gets blocked. So it's better to take a screenshot of this appointment confirmation page, and you can save it in your phone, because when you get to BLS, you will have to show them this appointment confirmation. Now, if you don't see any slots available the first time, don't panic, you'll just have to try again. These slots keep opening and they get filled up pretty quickly. But let's say you've been trying hard for several days, but you haven't had any luck finding the slots at your location of choice, then you'll just have to walk in to your BLS center and hope that the queue is not really long. So you reach the BLS center, show them the appointment, they'll let you in. Then a staff member will review your application form and all supporting documents. If everything is okay, they'll also confirm your current address where they can mail your OCI card. Then you'll need to pay for courier charges for BLS to send the OCI to you. It will be around 60 to 65 Canadian inclusive of taxes, and you can obviously pay with your debit card right there. Then they'll keep the application form and give you all the originals back. And they'll also give you a receipt with the tracking number, which you can use to track the status of your application. So it can take about a week after you submit the application before you can start tracking. But to track the application, you come back to this page, select jurisdiction, click on Track Application tab, select the type of submission. For me, it was walk-in by appointment. Then application type is OCI, reference number is the number that starts with CAN, then either passport number of the minor or the birth date of the minor, and then enter the CAPTCHA exactly as shown. It's case sensitive. Click on Track Application and it will tell you where your application is at. So for my child, from the day of submission to receiving his OCI card in the mail, it took about 40 days. On average, it takes about 45 days. Sometimes it can also take 2 to 3 months. So just set your expectations straight. It's fine if it takes longer than 40 or 45 days, but if it gets delayed longer than 3 months, then you should reach out to BLS and start inquiring. So that was all about OCI for a minor. Now, if you're thinking OCI for your child, at some point you will be looking to travel to India. And I know how nerve-wracking it can be to travel internationally with a baby. So don't worry, I've got you covered. I made a detailed video with a step-by-step guide for new parents on how to travel internationally with a baby. How to book seats on the plane, bassinet for the baby, what travel gear to use, what items to pack for your newborn for the flight, and things you can do in flight to make it a smoother experience for your baby as well as yourself. Click on this card and I'll see you there.